Good evening, Westport. How are we all doing? Good? Yeah, good. Well, what an amazing turnout. Thank you all very much for coming out this evening. So a big warm welcome to the theatre for this event. My name is Henry Dowler, but before telling you why I'm up here, I've got a few important acknowledgements and some other housekeeping announcements to make. Firstly, I acknowledge the Buller District Mayor, Russell, Regional Councillor Chris Cole, Buller District Chief Executive Simon Pickford, and the others who will be speaking here tonight. We're very grateful for them for turning up for a start and for sharing their expertise. Thanks also to the other elected members who've joined us, including, I believe, Western District Mayor Lash, who chairs the West Coast Emergency Management Joint Committee, and Chair Smith from the Regional Council. So welcome, thank you. And also a warm welcome to the folk here from several organisations who support and ensure the safety and welfare of the community during an emergency response, and there'll be an opportunity for you to chat to some of them more a bit later. I know that they all have very important information and advice to share. So, as I promised, some public service announcements. Please make sure you turn off or silence your cell phone. I just remembered to do mine, fortunately, so it won't go off in my pocket. In the unlikely event of an emergency, please use the exit door on the bottom left-hand side of the auditorium. That's your left, over here. Otherwise, there is another on the rear up the top, and or exit the way that you came in. The assembly point is outside the old Carnegie Library building opposite the NBS Theatre main entrance. If there is a fire in the building, a siren will sound and a voice will advise you to exit the building in a calm and orderly fashion. So please do so. Toilets are located down the far end behind the shop kiosk. The presentations are being recorded tonight for future publication, but I can assure you the camera's focused in this direction, so none of you will appear on that. Media representatives are present, and we expect they will report on tonight's event, so others can also be well informed. Our time here tonight, we just have an hour of presentations, is pretty short. So I'm going to ask you to keep your questions to the end, when there'll be an opportunity for you all to come down. The curtains will open behind me, and we'll have a whole team of people here ready to answer questions or to discuss any issues that you might have. And there's also additional copies of the evacuation guide and the household plan template, which you may already have seen. They were supposed to be delivered to everybody's mailboxes, but if you didn't get one, we've got plenty of spare copies here. At the end, as I mentioned, will be the opportunity to chat with the speakers, with your local experts and emergency responders about those concerns or questions. Please do take that opportunity. Finally, in case, like me, you've missed dinner, there is a sausage sizzle, and please grab one of those to keep you going later on. We deliberately kept it to the end so that you had to sit through the whole presentation before you got one. Now, sort of briefly, why am I up here? Lately, I've had the privilege of serving as the project lead for the emergency management components of the Resilient Westport work programme. My own background in emergency management is both broad and deep, which are two very relevant adjectives when we're talking about flood risks with the Buller River. My first professional experience with major flooding was in Invercargill in 1984. Excuse me. During that Southland event, there were more than 5,000 people out of their homes, and many never returned. It was a miracle that no lives were lost. Now here I am 42 years later, floodwater still flowing through the veins. It's great to see this turnout tonight. We're never quite sure how many people are going to turn up for these sorts of events, but I'm pretty impressed, so well done, Westport. And it'll be great you'll be able to pass on a lot of messages to other people here throughout the community from what you hear tonight. I'm proud to tell you that the team, the excellent team that I've worked with here in Westport, have achieved several things. They've procured and placed additional containerised emergency management resources. Excuse me, I'm running out of spit. So they procured and placed additional containerised emergency management resources. running business continuity and resilience workshops and supporting efforts to establish a new Buller Business and Landowners Association. And Jessie Creedmoor, who's leading that work, sitting in the front row here tonight as well, doing a great job. We've also commissioned work to improve specialist IT systems that support and inform emergency decision making, managing the information that's critical to decision making, which ultimately leads to the safety of this community. But wait, there's more. Good news. As well as the other things I mentioned, there's now a clear, detailed evacuation plan to guide the emergency management response. The plan that I'm referring to is really targeted at people like the controllers and the emergency services and people who implement that plan. But what flows out of that is a lot of useful information, some of which we'll be able to share here tonight. And the plan is now available on the Resilient Westport site if you really want to go and look at it. It's quite a beast, but if you're interested in the detail of what's in there, then feel free to go and have a look. The development of the plan started before I was involved. And like the presentations tonight, has involved a large team effort across many areas of specialty, science, leadership and emergency management expertise. The community were also involved in shaping that plan. Some of you were asking questions about how things will work, responding to surveys and providing other feedback. All very useful. But at the end of the day, plans only work if people understand them, which is part of the reason for tonight. And people need to act on them even if they do understand them. So tonight our goals are quite simple. To help you understand how decisions are made in relation to evacuations, to explain what will happen during an evacuation, and most importantly to make sure you know what you should do ahead of time. The key message that you'll hear tonight repeatedly, I'm sure, that in most cases there is time to act, there are sufficient warnings to evacuate, but it's important not to delay, because delays can create serious problems, both for you and for the people who are the emergency responders. Evacuations are best called before things become dangerous, so there is time to get ready and to go. And that precautionary approach is not a mistake, it's deliberate. It's how we keep people safe. So with that thought in mind, I'll now invite Mayor Russell to kick us off by speaking more about the community and its role in emergency preparedness.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming tonight. I'd like to acknowledge Chair of the West Coast Regional Council and Chief Executive, also Mayor Lash, and also my colleagues from Buller District Council. A lot of what I was going to say tonight, you've stolen my thunder, but never mind, I'll go through it anyway. So it's really good to see so many people here. Your attendance here tonight reflects something very important. In Buller, we understand that preparedness matters. As Mayor, my role in any crisis is provide leadership, support confidence and help ensure that the public sees calm and clear direction. I do not manage the operational response, but I do have a role in leading it publicly, communicating clearly, including through the media, and supporting confidence in the right people, plans and systems that are in place. There are many people across a range of organisations who prepare to protect and assist others if the worst happens. Their role is important, but so is yours. Knowing what to do, where to go and how to respond can make that real difference. As we've heard, advanced knowledge and practical know-how saves lives. That's why events like this really matter. They help people better understand the risks we face, the structure behind emergency management, and why preparation before an event is so very important. This is not about creating alarm, it's about being practical, being informed and being ready. So by taking the time to come along to learn, and especially to support those who are preparing to stand with Buller at a time of crisis, you are helping strengthen the district as a whole. Again, my role is to help set that tone, support confidence and stand with the community in times of crisis. I myself have not been through a major flood. I was living in Christchurch when you had the flood in 2021. However, I have lived through earthquakes here on the West Coast, big ones, and obviously in Christchurch, the big earthquakes there. There have been a lot of learnings come from those events, and Buller District Council in particular, with a number of things that they are spearheading, are taking those learnings and applying those in the Buller District, across the Buller District also. Being new to local government and being back recently, I've been very impressed and quite it's been quite outstanding, the work that I've come across that's being done, alongside the work that emergency management is doing too, to prepare the community for those times of crisis. Now, council staff in a crisis work alongside civil defence too, and they have their own responsibilities, and it's important that those are clearly understood as well. So I'll now hand over to our Chief Executive, Simon Pickford, to explain Council's role and the roles and responsibilities of staff within that wider emergency management framework. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Simon Pickford and I'm the Chief Executive at Buller District Council. Prior to this, I was at Dunedin City Council and I'd been there maybe 3 months, and we had the first of the major floods that hit South Dunedin. And I have to admit, I had no idea what I was doing. It was a very frightening place to be. Over time, I was trained and I was put into a role. I became welfare manager for Dunedin City and also the recovery manager post-floods in South Dunedin. So what you'll hear about tonight is something that often isn't visible. It's the system and, importantly, the people that sit behind the evacuation and how council resources are deployed to help ensure that we get you and the community to safety early. A lot of planning goes into making sure that if an evacuation is needed, it's coordinated, well-informed, and carried out in a structured way. So we use an internationally recognised framework. It's called SIMS. It's an acronym. You may hear a few of those tonight. It's the Coordinated Incident Management System. That's for every response that we do. So each agency, whether it's council, whether it's fire and emergency, whether it's police, St. John, we all work together under that one framework. And that ensures the best outcome for the community. So council staff, we participate in each phase of an evacuation. In response to a flood, or it could be an earthquake, any emergency. So it has different phases. The first of that is decision making. So that's assessing the risk and deciding whether an evacuation is actually needed. Warning. So this is about informing the public while we mobilise the resources. The evacuation itself, this is where council provides support to ensure that people are able to leave safely. Shelter, so this is where council staff can help provide care and support at places of safety. And finally, the return, the important bit, ensuring it's safe for people to go home. This isn't all improvised. It's planned, practiced, and continuously improved. So when we have small events, they're really good dry runs for when it actually happens. So SIMS is the framework. So who are the people? The people in charge of the event are called controllers. And these are trained professionals who are also members of our staff. Some of them are here tonight. We have Jess Curtis somewhere over there in the bright green. We've got Simon Bastian in front of me and also Anthony Blom. Some of our controllers, and we also have other folk outside of council who also are our controllers, like Ian Harvey. Well, I've seen Ian. Thank you, Ian. So they will step up as soon as required to help with an emergency or preparing for one. Our communications and engagement staff, who do that role every day, take up the role of providing public information, which is a vital part of successfully planning an emergency response. It's about keeping everyone informed. Council staff also perform key roles planning for transport, registration centres, places of safety, welfare and support services. So all of this is designed so that when a decision's made, a system can suddenly scale up quickly and effectively. We can go from a small monitoring team of 3 people up to 30 people. We need to roster to make sure we have folk in the Emergency Operations Centre 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But there is one critical factor that no system can control, and that's you. Everyone needs to play their part and be prepared to get ready and go. So congratulations, you've taken the first vital step coming along tonight. I'll now hand over to Samuel from the West Coast Regional Council. He's a hydrology team leader, and he'll take us through and explain about how they assess flood risk and why those early decisions are really, really important. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. My name's Samuel Warren. I manage the hydrology team at the West Coast Regional Council, and I've been asked to come here today and present to you on what we do to help inform decision making during flood events, and some of the work that we do behind the scenes to help collect information over a period of time that helps improve management decisions on the ground. You might have to forgive me here. I'm quite passionate about what I do, and so hopefully I don't run too much overtime. I've also been told that I can't move from the podium, which is going to restrict my ability to engage in what I've put on the slides. So we'll see how well we go. But we have three key components in what we do. In the hydrology team at the council. We operate a monitoring network throughout the region that consists of water level, flow and rainfall sites. This information is all live and telemetered, which means that we can keep track of what's going on within every sort of 15 minutes to an hour. It's all publicly available on our website, which I'll point to shortly. We're also responsible for maintaining that network when it's not flooding, to ensure that the data we're collecting from it can sort of aligns with national standards. And that means that it can be used in long-term data sets to inform engineering decisions, inundation mapping, and informed management decisions around evacuation. And then the last thing that we do is we have a very frontline focus during flood events itself. So just immediately prior to an event or during an event, we're feeding continuously intelligence to Civil Defence Emergency Management to give them a feel for what's going on in the catchment, what the forecasts are saying, and what we're sort of seeing on the ground. So next slide, please. So that's the wonderful team. There's 6 of us. So we operate the network across the West Coast. It's probably about 60 to 70 monitoring sites that we look after. I'm going to tailor this presentation to specifically the Buller and Westport, but it's just important to note that we do this across the region for Hokitika, Greymouth, Franz Joseph, Haast, and other small communities, so Karamea and Mokanui as well. But yeah, that's our network there. We don't like those yellow symbols. Those yellow symbols show us something's not quite right, but this is all publicly available. So you can go on our website, you can click on any of these icons and you can see what the river level's doing, what the rainfall's doing, that kind of thing. And 6 very friendly faces there. Next slide, please. So specifically here for Westport, we've got the Buller catchment here. Above me. In there we've got a number of sites throughout the region that we operate and maintain. There's a bit of a difference between our water level sites and our flow sites, but that flow information is really useful in different ways to level information. And within that we've got also a rain gauge network there as well. We've done a lot of work over the past 3 years. I'm really investing in the network, thanks to the Resilient Westport and government funding in this space. And it's really given us a wonderful sort of toolkit to sort of roll out improvements in the network. I'm going to talk through these slides a bit individually, but if we could flick to the next one, please. Yeah, so one of the first things that we did in Westport when we talked to engineers and locals was we installed 2 water level sites down here in Westport itself. One at the Buller River at State Highway 67 Bridge and one on the Orowaiti River. Those 2 water level sites are surveyed into a datum, and that was really important for engineers to sort of look at changes in water level with respect to what was going on in the Buller River and the Orowaiti. And that's sort of just an example of the information there. It's only sort of the recent information, but that site's been running, those 2 sites have been running for about 1.5 years. But that information has been really useful in looking at spill out and looking at what levels of those rivers are doing with respect to what we know are inundation extents within Westport. Next slide. So what else? The key site that we've got for Westport, which you'll hear about all the time, is Buller River at Takooha. So that's got a sort of a lead time of about 1.5 to 2 hours. So the peak in river level that we see at Takooha sort of occurs about an hour and a half down here at Westport. That's on the was on the map. Just upstream of that, we've got two sites, Buller River at Wolfs and Inangahua at Landing. These are two key flood warning sites that are owned and operated by the West Coast Regional Council that feed two very distinct arms of the catchment. And the Buller River catchment itself is very interesting for us in the sense that it takes a convergence of different storm systems in different catchments to sort of coalesce to create really large floods. And so a lot of the work that we've done at these two sites is to ensure both resilience and redundancy. And this came out of the significant flood events up north with Cyclone Gabrielle, where infrastructure that is relied upon for emergency management decisions, you want to really guarantee that the information that you get out of those sites is reliable. And so we've done a lot of work with both ensuring that the telemetry and the communications from those sites, there's redundant pathways in that, so they all operate over a radio network via cellular communication and now satellite systems. So that's that photo on the left. We also want to make sure that during flood events, these key sites that we rely on for decisions, we're always going to gather information during an event. And one aspect of that has been ensuring that some of the instrumentation that we're using is outside of what we consider to be a significant flood level. And so that middle photo there is an example where we've extended a stilling well tower to ensure that we've got a radar sitting well above what we think at the largest flood that we would reasonably expect to assume would be. And then the third thing that we've really done at these sites and really focused on these sites is site access and safety. So much to the probably annoyance of my manager, when it's flooding, I really like our team to be out there on the ground at these sites, recording what's going on, ensuring that the sites are working. If the sites go down, we want to be there to be able to continuously talk to civil defence and tell them what's going on, and that requires safe access, given that a lot of these sites are in remote locations and in steep locations. And I'm very proud to say all of this work we've done within our team ourselves, which has been pretty cool. Next slide. And this allows us to look at information sort of like this. So this is a series of water level plots for flow and flood sites in the Buller catchment. The large blue line, dark blue line that's sort of quite high on that graph is Buller River at Takooha. But the other sites or the other graphs that you see on there are all sites that are further up catchment. And what this allows us to do is it allows us to sort of talk to civil defence and say, hey, the Buller River's at Takooha's not peaking yet. The flood has not got to its highest extent, but we can see further up the catchment, sites are beginning to level off or drop in level, and so we know that the event that we're about to see in Westport we might see a bit more rise in level, but we know that it's going to taper off in shortly. Similarly, if those sites continue to go up through the roof, we know that, oh look, something really big's coming. And we can provide advanced lead time as to what's going to happen, and that's really, really important for Westport. Our key flood warning site gives us a couple of hours of warning, but we know that it takes 12 to 24 hours, I believe, to evacuate Westport efficiently, and so we want to ensure that we provide enough lead time to civil defence and to the community to make informed decisions about evacuation. Similarly, we know that at certain levels you can't evacuate via the Buller Gorge because certain parts of the road go underwater, and so that again feeds into these decisions, and that's informed by this information that we're collecting from these sites. So the second aspect of what we do is those sites provide us with this live information that we can see what's going on the ground immediately. But the way, during sunny days like today, we're always out checking these sites and inspecting these sites to ensure that they meet standards so that we can inform long-term data sets. And those long-term data sets allow us to design flood stop banks to certain levels of service. They allow us to do flood inundation mapping to work out where water is going to go within catchments. In the Buller River, in the Buller catchment, we've got records that span sort of 60 years, which give us real good confidence as to what we might expect to see for an event that had a return period of, say, 100 years. And yeah, all of that information sort of combined allows us to sort of do what you'll see next in the next slide, which is sort of the technical numbery bit that some of us like to get excited about. But yeah, so we've got a number of alarm trigger levels that we operate under within our team and with Civil Defence. Those are informed by what's happened in the past and by looking at a long-term record of information. So within the hydrology team, we have a 24/7 roster of flood duty officers, and these are people that whenever any of our rivers throughout the coast go through an alarm, they pick up the phone and they start talking to Civil Defence, to the police, to other emergency management services, to the district councils, and to community leaders. So there's an set of examples there of who of the levels that we make these phone calls at for the Buller River. Similarly, we then can look at these events over long periods of time and look at different storm systems and work out what the duration is between peaks at different sites to work out what our lag times between sites are. And then looking at the records over long periods of time, we can work out how large events we might realistically expect to see in certain years are, so sort of return periods. So an event of a certain magnitude we would expect to see every 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. This sort of ties in with the immediate data that we see, and it allows us to start informing people of like how big an event is that we're seeing as it's happening relative to what's happened in the past. And that's really good to know on the ground at the moment, but also it's really good in reflection afterwards. Next slide. And so this all feeds into sort of that third component, which is what we do at the Regional Council when we operate what we call our first team, our Flood Impact Risk Specialist team. This is a collection of people within the Council who are specialists in engineering, natural hazards, hydrology, and emergency management. And prior to any sort of event, we might get a phone call from the community or from a district council or from the Met Service to say, hey, look, there's a weather event coming, we're quite concerned. And the first team within the Regional Council kind of gets together and we discuss and we look through a whole bunch of information. Now the first team is something that we've sort of developed over the past few years, and it's really to provide consistent information to all decision makers across the region. It provides a very trusted line of communication of information to Civil Defence. Different districts have different evacuation plans and they have different ways of working, but we want to ensure that what we do and how we do it is consistent across that framework. And so, yeah, that's the next slide, please. And so we play a really sort of frontline role prior to and during and following events. And one of the key things that we do when we pull these people together is we have the severe weather forecasters at Met Service on call. Weather forecasting is complex. And Met Service often put out warnings and watches for systems and publish maps like you can see above. But there's a lot that goes on in the background, and we've all done forecast training with Met Service, and so we ring Met Service and we talk to Met Service about things like convection and what type of storm system is occurring. Are we looking at something that's moving fast? Are we looking at like warm, dense air masses off the Tasman Sea? what is it that your forecast map isn't showing that we really need to be aware of. We then look at our network and we look at our monitoring network and we understand whether or not it's working or it's not. We look at our rivers, how much capacity is there in our rivers and in our catchments to absorb the rainfall that's being forecast. And we look at antecedent soil moisture conditions, how much rain has fallen in the catchment over the past day or past week. And all of that information from the hydrology side then feeds in, and we talk to natural hazards who are like looking at landslides and landslide damming and those sorts of problems that occurred just a few days ago, blocking roads. And then our engineers, and we talk to our engineers about, are there any assets that you have that are currently being serviced, or do you have equipment in the rivers, that kind of thing. And so we pull all that information together in a nice little package, and we give a briefing to Civil Defence, and Civil Defence say, hey, we're quite concerned about this, and so they'll activate a larger scale briefing, which we'll be in the room for, to sort of present that to, along with the District Council and controllers and FENS and other agencies. So, last slide, I think. Right. Bulla. We have the only sort of flood model that we operate on the coast is here for Bulla. It was a 5-year partnership with NIWA, who came to us and said, hey, we can build you a flood model that provides potentially up to 3 days of warning for large flooding that may occur. It's a forecast model. And what that does is it takes a forecast for 3 days out and it sort of simulates what that may look like over the Bulla catchment. And it's an ensemble model, so what it does in technical terms is it takes a forecast and then it breaks the forecast down and alters it slightly throughout the catchments to come up with a range of what possible flood scenarios might be. It's also very smart, so it's auto-regressive, and so it feeds into some of those flow sites that I pointed to earlier. And if it's estimating something's going on at those flow sites which aren't actually occurring, it'll adjust itself to kind of coalesce and align with what's actually happening on the ground. The yellow dots that you saw on the first map, which are a series of 5 rain gauge sites that we've built in the upper catchment, are all associated with this model. So we're working on improving the model's performance by using what we call landed rainfall. And that's just taking rainfall information that's occurring on the ground and allowing the model to see what's going on the ground and adjust itself. And the reason that we've installed those sites is because there's no real rainfall information in the upper catchments of the Bulla River, either by Met Service, NIWA, or Tasman Regional Council, who own sort of are responsible for everything north of Murchison. So we've been in partnership with them and we've installed those those rainfall sites to sort of build into that model. And there's just examples of that model performance over time there, simulating what it thinks is going to happen. So that's an ongoing process that we have with NIWA, but it provides us with a bit more lead time than what we just see rawly on the ground. And last slide. The last thing that we do with respect to FIRST and the hydrology team is we really like being out in the field during flood events to keep an eye on what's going on the ground, ensuring that those sites are working, gauging those rivers at high flows, which is really, really important to feed into our data sets for engineering design for flood protection schemes and inundation mapping. Yeah, that's me. That's what we do. And I'll pass on to Claire from Civil Defence.
Thank you, Samuel. Tēnā koutou katoa. Good evening, everyone. My name is Claire Brown and I'm the Manager for West Coast Emergency Management. I manage a team of 6 people, 3 of whom are in the room here tonight. We've got Cindy Fleming at the front here, Janice Lennon somewhere over that way, and Jamie Klein, who is also over this way. My team work across the 4 councils across the region. We work with around 60 communities and alongside emergency services and across a range of agencies, both local and central government. Our team is part of the West Coast Regional Council. Our job is to help us all be better prepared to respond to emergencies. Tonight is the start of a conversation with you about what our plan is and about what your plan is. Our plan is an operational plan that will be worked through by response agencies. It is the plan that helps guide agencies. The plan considers a range of factors about when, who, how, and where to evacuate. Every event is different, but we need a strong base plan to help coordinate and focus our efforts. Tonight is not an endpoint, but the beginning of a conversation. I will talk now a little bit about how the operation works, who is involved, but most importantly, what is your role? How we work during a major flood and other emergencies is based on a national response framework called the Coordinated Incident Management System that Simon referred to earlier in his presentation. This helps ensure that all agencies, council, emergency services, health, welfare, iwi and others, are working together in a coordinated way. At the centre of the response is the Emergency Operation Centre. This is where information comes together, planning takes place and decisions are made and actions are coordinated. But what I really want to focus on tonight is the most important question. What does all of this mean for you and your household? Let's start with the simplest and most important point. If an evacuation is advised, act early, leave as early as you can. Our operational plan assumes there are two main groups, those who can self-evacuate and those who need assistance. We know that many people can self-evacuate. Self-evacuation is always the safest and most efficient option. It means you leave in your own time. You go to a place you've already chosen and you reduce pressure on emergency services. But we also know that there will be some people in households who may need help, assistance and guidance to evacuate. For those who need help, support is planned for and made available, including things like transport, accommodation and welfare support. During an evacuation, you should expect clear public messaging through multiple channels, defined evacuation zones and routes, teams of people helping to guide and support you, systems in place to register and track those who need assistance. But preparation begins well before that. There are a few simple things every household should do. Have a plan. Where will you go? How will you get there? Who do you need to contact? Prepare essential items, medications, important documents, warm clothing, personal items, and where possible, food and water supplies. Think about others, other family members, neighbours, and anyone you might need to check in on. And don't forget, you also need a plan for your pets. We know people will not want to leave pets behind. Having a way to look after pets is also an important part of your planning and for our planning. One of the biggest challenges in any evacuation is hesitation. people wait. People wait to see what happens. People wait to gather more information. People wait to decide, is it really necessary? But waiting can quickly turn a manageable situation into a dangerous one. So the message is simple and clear. Do not wait for the situation to become dangerous. Act on the advice you are given and act quickly. The success of any evacuation depends not just on the plan, but on the people it is designed to protect. Finally, I also wanted to touch on the roles of our emergency response partners, several of whom are here with us tonight. Thank you. New Zealand Police continue to maintain law and order during an emergency. They can also exercise powers during a state of emergency and will liaise with other agencies to ensure the most effective use of police resources. Fire and Emergency New Zealand, whilst maintaining their FENS duties, carry out functions including urban search and rescue, as well as other roles and during response and recovery. St John Hatahone, alongside other health sector agencies, continue to provide health and disability services in the event of an emergency. This includes assisting with relocation of people in healthcare facilities and other vulnerable members of the community. Ministry for Primary Industries has a role to plan for and support emergency response for our rural farming communities, and they help us look after the pets of those who have had to evacuate. New Zealand Defence Force may also be involved. They provide additional support and resources to help bolster the response and support a range of functions. This final slide, that's it, is just an example. It's an example of the range and variety of agencies that are involved in our responses. It is a team of agencies and groups involved in preparing for and helping our community to respond. Please make the most of the evening and the opportunity that you'll have shortly to talk to us further with any questions that you may have. Again, I want to thank you all once again for coming out tonight. Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou. Thank you.
Day 1, the watch. The West Coast knows rain. It lives with it, plans around it, and measures seasons by it. But over the past couple of days, the rain has felt different. Not intense, not dramatic, just steady, falling hour after hour, soaking into the ground, filling drains, and darkening the edges of rivers people know by heart. At the same time, forecasters have been tracking an ex-tropical cyclone moving toward New Zealand. For days, weather models have been pointing toward the same possibility: prolonged rainfall, already saturated catchments, and very little room for error if the system slows. This morning, a weather watch is issued. A watch is not an alarm, but it is a signal. A moment that asks people to look up from their routines and take notice. A watch doesn't tell anyone to leave. It doesn't demand action. It asks for your attention. West Coast Emergency Management begins sharing simple public messaging. The community is told the situation is being monitored, that staff are on duty, that updates will come if conditions change. Nothing urgent, nothing frightening, just raising awareness. Behind the scenes, preparation begins quietly. Rosters are reviewed, forecasts are checked and then rechecked. Partner agencies touch base and confirm their availability. Across Westport, people absorb the watch in different ways. Some register it and move on. Others pause, remembering past floods, watching the river more closely now, noticing how long the rain has already been falling. They make small mental notes, where important documents are kept, which road they would take if they had to leave, who they might check on if the weather were to worsen. But life continues. Schools are open, shops are trading, and cars move through town. But beneath it all, the groundwork is already being laid. Day 2, orange. By mid-morning the next day, the forecast is upgraded to an orange heavy rain warning. This is different. An orange warning means the risk is no longer distant. It means confidence has increased. It means the weather is now likely to cause real impacts. This is where readiness becomes deliberate. West Coast Emergency Management activates the Emergency Operations Centre in full. People arrive with purpose. Screens fill with data, maps, forecasts, river levels and reports begin to tell a single, clearer story. The same question is asked repeatedly. What has changed since yesterday? Rainfall totals are climbing. Rivers are rising faster than they did yesterday. The time between updates feels shorter. The Emergency Operations Centre moves to full staffing and a 24-hour roster. Planning, intelligence, logistics and welfare teams are all engaged, not reacting but staying ahead of what may come. Public messaging becomes more direct. People are encouraged to prepare grab bags, charge their phones, secure medications, make plans for their pets, and decide where they would go if evacuation became necessary. For many households, the answer is already clear. They would stay with family, with whānau, or with friends outside the risk area or outside the district. For others, the answer is more complicated. That is why planning for support begins early. Transport options are identified, welfare teams are readied, needs are considered, quietly, respectfully and without assumption. As afternoon turns to evening, the forecasts sharpen again. The uncertainty narrows. Key agencies meet urgently. The assessment is clear. A red warning will be issued that night. The Mayor is advised to declare a state of emergency, not because evacuation is inevitable, but because readiness must be absolute. Operational responsibility transfers to the controller, who now carries the weight of the next decisions, guided by science, real-time data, and the knowledge that every choice affects real lives. Inside the Emergency Operations Centre, the pace shifts. Evacuation plans are activated, night shift staff take over, and a full 7-day roster is established. Across Westport, people feel the change. Phones are charged, bags are packed, and cars are parked facing outward. The town is no longer just watching, it is waiting in readiness. Day 3, red. By morning, the red warning is in force. This is the highest level, the point where the risk to life becomes unacceptable. After updated assessments, the controller issues a mandatory evacuation notice. The message is clear and deliberate. Evacuate according to instructions. Leave early if you feel unsafe. Do not return until the all clear is given. For most people, the response is swift and quiet. Doors are locked, lights are turned off, there is a final glance at familiar rooms. People leave, heading to family, friends, or accommodation outside the evacuation area. This is how evacuations work best, not in panic, but in motion. At the same time, another response unfolds. Door knocking begins where alerts may not have been seen or heard. Transport or assistance is organised for people with mobility challenges, medical needs, or those unable to reach a registration centre. Public address systems repeat the message. Police and road crews manage traffic, close unsafe routes, and keep people away from floodwater. For residents who cannot stay with family or friends, or who have no safe place to go, registration centres are opened. Here, people are welcomed, registered, and their needs identified and support arranged, including transport to a place of safety. They are given somewhere warm and safe to sit, to rest, to breathe. Pets are welcomed and accounted for. Where possible, residents are encouraged to evacuate with their animals, bringing leads, cages and blankets, anything their pets may need along the way. Welfare teams provide steady support, practical help, clear information, quiet reassurance. Vulnerable residents are not left behind. Behind the scenes, operations continue without pause. Incident control points activate, cordons are established, backup communications ensure coordination holds even if other systems fail. And then, with people waiting in a safe place, the rain begins to ease. The river, no longer as driven by the catchment that feeds it, starts to tame, settle, and gently recede. The return. The return doesn't happen all at once. Before anyone goes home, assessments are made, rivers are monitored, infrastructure is checked, roads are inspected for damage that is not always visible at first glance. Only when it is safe does the all clear come. People return carefully. They drive the same roads, but see them differently now. They unlock doors, step inside, and take stock. For many, home is just as they left it. For others, there are signs of what came really close. Damp floors, debris, the faint line where water almost reached. The return is emotional in ways that are hard to predict. Relief, gratitude, exhaustion, sometimes loss. Community teams continue their work. Support remains available. Information is shared about cleanup, assistance, and what happens next. And slowly, life resumes. Shops reopen. Schools prepare to welcome students back. Neighbours check on neighbours. And the event moves from the present into memory. Reflection. Evacuations are ordered only when authorities believe people may be in serious danger. They are never taken lightly. The evacuation journey, from watch to orange to red, and finally to return, exists for a reason. It gives emergency managers time to prepare, and it gives communities time to act. Most people will always self-evacuate, supported by their own plan and networks. For those who cannot, help will always be there. Preparedness is not about fear, it's about confidence. Confidence in information, confidence in planning, confidence in knowing that when the moment comes, you will not face it alone. Know your plan, know where you will go, know how you will stay connected. And when the rain eases and the doors open up again, you will know that being ready made all the difference.
Thanks everybody for coming. I'm sure you realise the importance of preparation, and I was really impressed by that video there. That was really tailor-made for our Buller. It's really an unusual river in that it's one of the few rivers that spans two district councils, Tasman and Buller, and it makes life awkward for trying to plan for it. So our evacuation plan really is a work in progress, because it has to be like that, because sometimes the evacuations are not going to be a full evacuation. They're going to be most times only a partial evacuation, because certain parts of the town which we know flood sooner than others, and we may find that we only need to evacuate within the town. But if it goes even further, like the red warning did, then a full evacuation starts to get really complicated, because our routes out of town, like the Buller Gorge for example, there's 3 or 4 places in there that when the river reaches a certain height, then we really can't go up through the gorge. So we're going to have to stay almost in a relatively short radius of Westport town. I was quite pleased to see when Samuel did his presentation that the warning system is really, they take it very seriously, and forever making sure that rain gauges and water level recorders are functioning. I get disappointed with some members of our community will say, go and damage those recording instruments, and not realising that they could be putting people's lives at risk. So hats off to Samuel and his crew for making sure that those water level recorders and rain gauges are forever being fixed up and made usable again. I also was a bit interested in hearing about, not tonight, but from the community, almost a return to the old days of civil defence warden type structure, where people are offering their services because they feel a need to be involved in civil defence. And one of our big problems these days is that people are time poor, and to be able to have people, volunteers, that can be assisting in these sorts of situations is really important. And I just ask those people to make themselves known to the civil defence system and people in civil defence, so that they can be trained in either the Sims type situation or the role of civil defence, so that they can be more effective than just being a volunteer. So thank you, Civil Defence and the crew from both councils, for this presentation tonight. I really enjoyed it, and I found everybody here would have learnt something from it. Thank you.
Right, so once again everybody, that's the conclusion of the presentations. As I mentioned earlier, by some miracle these curtains behind me are going to open, and there's a number of tables and things there with information on it, which, look at that, power of speech. And there's a number of tables behind me, and the various people from police, FENS, and a whole bunch of others are going to turn up down there and be available to answer questions that you may have. Is Janice in the room still? No, she's left us. I know that the sausages are probably out there somewhere, so look, you'll be able to find those at some point. I just wanted to say thank you very much to the people who have given up their time to speak tonight. It always takes a lot of preparation for these events, and I actually witnessed the angst that some people experience in preparing for this tonight. So if you do have questions for them, please be kind. They really do have a lot of useful information to share, and are very willing to do that. So take the opportunity, come on down, have a chat, and thank you all once again for turning out. Really appreciate it.